So, I'm going to share the real hard earned writing tips that help me turn boring scenes into page turning chapters. I've written dozens of best selling novels and been signed by major publishers such as Penguin Random House. So, if you need to fix boring writing, then stick around to the end. You were so hopeful when you started writing your book. Maybe you even created a Pinterest board full of aesthetic images, had a Spotify playlist, and maybe you even told your partner that you think this could be the book. Then the doubts crept in. Those magical first chapters turned into a slog because the story in your head wasn't transferring to the page. Your characters started to feel monotonous, and suddenly you're Googling how to fix boring writing. Well, first of all, you're not alone. I've published dozens of books, and trust me, I have been where you are now. But I found a way to fix it, and I haven't looked back. If your characters are just floating around, chatting to people without any risk of consequences, then we're already asleep. Stakes don't always mean life or death. It could be any number of things, from the fear of losing a loved one to a family secret about to go viral. The key is that the stakes must matter deeply to your character. In my Ruby Preston detective series, the stakes were high for my main detective as she was dating a gangster who she'd loved all her life. As you can see, those stakes are high before we even introduce the main plot. Ruby loves Nathan Crosby because she believes there is real good in him, but she knows that she's risking her job. This instant high-stakes situation is great introduction to a book. So get brainstorming and see what you can come up with. And ask yourself, what if your antagonist fails, and then crank that dial up, because the consequences of things going wrong must be too much for your character to bear. In my novel, The Ice Angels, my main character, Detective Elia Baker, has spent the last 10 years hunting for her missing daughter. Failure is not an option as far as she is concerned. But what if your stakes are high, but a scene kind of starts to flag? Well, add conflict. It's a great quick fix when your story starts to stall. In The One by John Mars, which is a brilliant book by the way, people could take a DNA test to find their genetic soulmate. But what happens if you're married to someone else? Instant conflict. But you could also introduce conflict in the form of an argument, a misunderstanding, a sudden discovery, or an introduction of a new character. The possibilities are endless, and it really boosts stalled writing. Flat writing is often a symptom of a writer being emotionally stingy, and look, I get it. Opening yourself up and writing deep emotional scenes can feel like stripping naked in front of strangers. But that's what real writing is. It's being vulnerable, digging deep. If you want your characters to care, you have to let people in. The Silence of the Lambs worked so well because Hannibal Lecter extracted Clarice Starling's deepest, darkest fears, the memories of her childhood that she tried so hard to forget. And it was so cleverly done because that scene had been set up from the moment she got into the lift at the FBI training camp, looking small against the backdrop of these hulking men. So let your characters feel deeply. Let them be petty. Let them be wrong. Let them cry in the supermarket car park, wiping their nose in the back of their sleeve because they don't have a tissue in the pocket. That's being human. It's snotty and messy and filled with emotion, which is something that AI writing just can't give. So give them a backstory that shapes their thoughts and actions moving on. Emotion isn't just about tragedy or romance. If stakes and conflict are the lifeblood, then emotion is the heartbeat of your story. So take a moment when you're writing. Close your eyes. Really stand in your character's shoes. How does it feel? And then write. Whatever genre you write, there should be someone pushing against your protagonist. This gives us even more delicious conflict. So what if you write romance, for example? Where is the antagonist there? Well, it could be another love interest getting in the way of your star couple, or it might not be a person at all. For example, in Me Before You by Jojo Moynes, the driving force against our antagonist Lou was Will's wish to go to a clinic in Switzerland and end it all. Your antagonist should be actively pushing back against your protagonist, whether that antagonist is a person, a system, or even themselves. Great antagonists challenge your hero's values. Great protagonists don't just want to stop the villain, they want to win for personal reasons, and finding out why is what keeps the story interesting. Now, if your mustache twirling villain is just being evil because they happen to be born bad, and your hero is always nice and occasionally clever, that's not tension. That's a bad Hallmark movie. So make it messy, make it hurt, because characters, they're not action figures, they're not Barbies and Kens. Humans are like onions, they're so layered, and let your characters be too. In Game of Thrones by George R.R. Martin, yes, I did get to meet him, it was great. It's the characters that readers follow from book to book. Some scenes are dark and so gruesome, but then they're lightened by funny and even joyful moments. This layering of dark and light keeps readers gripped. When I write crime, I always try to inject some lighter moments to provide some humanity and much needed reader relief. And this can come in the form of banter or a really likeable and funny character being involved. Now, this writing tip might sound like something you'd find stuck on the wall next to Live, Laugh, Love. But hear me out. You don't need a traumatic backstory or a literary degree. I had neither when I started out. But you have lived. So reflect on those special moments and introduce them into your writing. Maybe it's the way your nan made tea with condensed milk, or the way your cat wakes you up in the morning by licking your face. It's even better if those tiny little moments are something that readers can relate to. They are human and they are gold. For me, I used my time working in the police when it came to drawing on real life emotions. And what emotions or memories can you draw upon? Now, a quick word of caution from me. As I've said, good writing involves really digging deep. And honestly, there are times when I've written that I have cried and laughed. But you've got to look after your mental health. If you're writing a genre or a character that makes you dread coming to the page, then maybe it's time to consider writing something else. Subtext is another pro writing tip. A character saying, "I'm fine," while clearly falling apart, is much more gripping than a paragraph on their emotional breakdown. Readers love to do the detective work, so instead of just laying everything out there, give them clues. Let them read between the lines. You're not just writing words, you're crafting tension. And subtext lets you be clever. And it's very satisfying to write. It's a great way of conveying chemistry and connection too. Whether it's lovers, friends, rivals, or reluctant allies, real chemistry lives in what's not said. In the pause before the confession. In the side eye during a disagreement. In the long look that says, "I want you, but I'll never let you know." Look, I love a meaningful story as much as anyone, but if your book starts to sound like a political rant, readers will close it faster than you can say unsubscribe. When I write, my goal is to entertain my readers. It's as simple as that. You may have a cause that's close to your heart, but I wouldn't use writing as a vessel for getting it across. Because as admirable as it may be, not everyone will agree with you, which could lead to a percentage of readers putting the book down and marking you as an author that they'll never read again. And I know you might say, well, I don't want those type of readers, but your publisher might disagree. When you sign a contract with a publisher and an agent, it's a business deal. Your publisher and agent, they want to make you money, and in return they will too. Now, it makes no sense for them to alienate a section of readers. But what if it's central to your story? Well, your themes should rise naturally from the plot. What I'm trying to say is, don't write a sermon. write a story and trust your readers that they will get the message without being beaten over the head with it until they submit. And hey, if you're still watching this video, well done, because this already puts you ahead of 99% of other writers out there. So same length sentences, well, they can feel robotic. That's why I mix it up. Think of some sentence structures as a quick jab, then a proper punch, then follow it up with a long, sweeping sentence that flows like a river through a forest. Your sentence structure is your pacing. If you want tension, shorten it. You want introspection, linger. Writing is like music, which is why it's so important to read your work out loud. Only then can you really get the feel of the ebb and flow of your words. Oh, the dreaded copy and paste. This tends to happen more with books which haven't had a good edit. I have read books where it's painfully obvious that the author has copied and pasted great wads of text from other sources, such as tourist and information boards for settings or the Police and Criminal Evidence Manual for Crime. Now, when I write a police procedural novel, I don't go into great detail about pace, but I will talk about what it's like to be a human police officer. The lack of sleep, the feeling of the weight of the stab vest on a hot day, the pressures of juggling work and home, and the smells emanating from the custody block. They're not good. And if you're writing crime but you've never been inside a custody block, then use your imagination or speak to people who have. These small insights will make your book stand out from the rest. So if your writing is gorgeous but you still find yourself drifting off, ask yourself, what's really happening in each chapter? Does each scene move the plot or deepen the conflict? Add twists and turns, add a ticking clock, a deadline, a threat, and never be afraid to break your main character's heart. If things are slowing, throw a grenade into the story. So now if your writing feels boring, well, that means things are about to get interesting. Until next time, happy writing, because if you've got this far, it means that you are more likely to succeed. Check out my special offers in the links below if you'd like to work with me. And if you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe, as I have lots more coming soon. And if you're ready to work with your protagonist, you're going to love this video where I show you how I wrote a villain that made me a New York Times best-selling author.